Tom Rivers was fairly certain he was going to lose his job tonight. It wasn't his fault. The bar's ancient auto mixers had decided to malfunction halfway through the dinner rush on Zeta 9 station, and he'd been forced to dig around in their guts with a screwdriver in one hand and a dripping cocktail shaker in the other. People weren't patient about their synthetic rum on a good day, but add faulty machines and Tom's streak of bad luck, and it was chaos incarnate. The drunken customers swore at him in half a dozen alien languages, sometimes flinging insults he needed to run through his universal translator just to feel properly offended. Their words only confirmed what Tom's boss had repeatedly threatened. One more disaster, and his position here would be up for grabs. He was still wearing the grimy apron from his short-lived bartending shift when he got a priority ping on his comm device, reminding him he was overdue on a payment to the Crimson Talons. Of course, Tom had hoped they'd forget for another week or two, but criminals seldom had memory problems, especially when he owed them enough credits to buy a second-hand starship. Sighing, he shut down the broken auto-mixer entirely, much to the patron's dismay, and waved over his tired coworker to cover the bar until he returned. The coworker only rolled her eyes, probably figuring Tom was trying to skip out again. But if he didn't pay the Talons, he could kiss his meager existence goodbye. They'd either come for him or for whatever scraps of property he had left. Outside, the neon lights of Zeta 9 station flickered in chaotic intervals. Commercial signs of all shapes and languages hung overhead like a carnival gone wrong, each promising the best drinks, the best smuggled items, the best this or that. Nobody cared for authenticity or disclaimers. It was all about hooking the next sucker. Tom hurried past the stalls at the station's main concourse, sidestepping rickety stands that sold questionable homemade NutriPacks. He navigated the labyrinth of corridors and found himself in the seediest wing of Zeta 9, where the Crimson Talons kept an office guarded by humorless grunts with laser rifles. Part of him cringed, knowing he didn't have the payment, but if he showed up late, he might lose more than a job. At least confronting them in person sometimes bought him a day or two of mercy. He'd barely turned the corner when he felt a tug on his jacket. Spinning around, he nearly knocked over a small cart loaded with what looked like sealed pastry boxes. The cart's owner, a green-skinned alien woman with striking silver hair, offered him a grin. Her face was lined with faint wrinkles, but her eyes danced with mischievous energy that suggested she was anything but frail. She wore an assortment of mismatched garments that might have been fashionable on some distant planet, but on Zeta 9 station she just looked delightfully out of place. Her voice, heavily accented but smooth, rang out over the station's background clamor. "You look hungry," she declared, thrusting one of her sealed pastry boxes toward him, "and also like someone in desperate need of good fortune." He was hungry, but more than that, he was late and in trouble. "Ma'am," he said, stepping back and looking around to ensure no pickpocket was sneaking up behind him, "I'm in a hurry. Also, I don't have spare credits for random desserts right now." She giggled, which surprised him, an alien grandmotherly type, giggling like a mischievous child. "Nonsense, dear. My name is Nana Lascara, and I can spot a soul in need of help from a parsec away." Her voice dropped conspiratorially. "This one is on the house. You can call it a gift." She lifted the lid of a small container and revealed a handful of golden brown cookies. Their aroma was a strange mix of sweet and slightly floral, possibly with some alien spice. "Take one. I insist." He hesitated. If there was one rule Tom had learned from living on a station full of hustlers, it was that nothing was truly free. But as though reading his thoughts, the woman leaned in closer. "It's an investment in your future." Her grin broadened. "Please, dear, you'll be doing me a favor by making space for new stock." His stomach rumbled in betrayal. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had a decent meal that day. He'd been living off cheap instant noodles from the bar's break room. "All right, it was just a cookie." "Right?" "Sure, thanks." He grabbed one, intending to devour it swiftly. The flavor was remarkably good, buttery, a hint of vanilla, and something else he couldn't place. Maybe a faint tang reminiscent of exotic fruit. "Wow, this is Orcs, he began, but trailed off when he saw the intense glint in her eyes. "Ah, you ate it perfect." The old woman clasped her hands together. "You have no idea how much that helps." And before he could inquire further, she said, "I must go. My granddaughter shall be along to find you soon, dear fiancé." Then she cackled softly, loaded her cart, and waddled away among the throngs of station residents, leaving Tom with his mouth half open, the cookie half eaten, and a sinking sense of alarm swirling in his gut. Fiancé? He decided he must have misheard. There was no way this random woman had just claimed that by taking a cookie he'd become engaged to her granddaughter. No, definitely not. He shook his head and tried to dismiss the weirdness. Zeta 9 station was full of odd types, and half of them were scammers. Probably she was some eccentric hawker with a flair for dramatics. Tom tossed the remaining cookie crumb in his mouth, savored its sweet tang, and hurried off. He had real problems to deal with. By the time he arrived at the Talon's office, his stomach was in knots. The borrowed corridor space had been done up in the usual gangster chick style. Neon graffiti, muscle guys with shaved heads, and suspicious mechanical enhancements. Tom recognized one of them, the tall, scowling man who typically handled the door. He was ushered into a dimly lit back room with stale air and piles of contraband crates stacked along the walls. The boss, a broad-shouldered human with an artificial right eye, was seated at a metal desk. He eyed Tom like an eagle might eye a mouse. "Rivers." "You're late," the man's voice crackled, artificially deepened by a throat implant. "And you're short on credits, I bet." Tom swallowed hard. "I just need a few more days. The bar's auto mixers broke down, so I couldn't get my wages yet." "I don't want your excuses." The boss stood. "Crimson Talons have been very patient, but we're not a charity. Pay up in 24 hours or we'll come for your head." His false eye glowed red for emphasis. 24 hours is impossible," Tom protested. I barely have enough to feed myself. If you could just grant me a small extension." A powerful hand clamped on Tom's shoulder. "I said what I said." "We'll find you." The boss waved him off, as though chasing away a stray cat. Deflated, Tom stumbled back out, adrenaline thrumming in his veins. 24 hours, it was insane. He might have tried to make a run for it on some cargo freighter if he didn't already fear that the Talons had watchers in every docking bay. He made his way back through the station, ignoring the rancid smells drifting out of the garbage chutes and the glare of neon overhead. The headache in his temple expanded. If there was a miracle to be had, he needed it soon. Or it was game over. He was about to re-enter the bar, ready to beg his boss for an advance, when it happened. A tall, striking figure stepped into his path. At first, all he registered was tinted purple skin, offset by a layer of sleek silver hair that fell to her shoulders. She had angular features that suggested a different evolutionary lineage from the old woman earlier, but the resemblance around the eyes was uncanny. She wore something akin to a close-fitted uniform of shimmering fabric, with a foreign crest pinned near the collar. Her gaze locked onto him the moment he took a step closer, and it felt like a wave of electricity shot down his spine. "Are you Tom Rivers?" Her voice was low, resonant, with a somewhat musical accent that reminded him of the grandmother's. "I am Elena Lascara." "Huh? Where is my grandmother?" A swirl of confusion hit him. Lascara, just like that old woman, the cookies, the weird talk of fiancé. He stammered, She left me after handing me a cookie. I guess." A flicker of something, anger, exasperation crossed her face. "Yes, the cookie. That would be the Orion binding cookie of betrothal, and you apparently ate it. By my people's laws, that puts you under contractual engagement to me." "Look, lady," he said, "I don't know what your grandmother told you, but I definitely didn't sign any contract. She just forced a pastry on me." "That pastry," Elena stressed, "is a sacred artifact we Orions call a sentir cookie. It symbolizes a vow to unify two parties in a formal betrothal. It is recognized by my house's law. And apparently," she added with quiet fury, "my grandmother has decided to use you as part of an alliance." I thought for sure she would have asked me first, but apparently not. Tom held up his hands, glancing around at the bar's half-broken sign flickering behind him. I don't want any trouble. I mean, I have enough of that as is. I'm not trying to marry an alien. Not that there's anything wrong with an alien. Sorry, that sounded speciesist. I'm in debt, I'm on the verge of losing everything, and I definitely don't want some fiasco with an alien house. Maybe there's a way to break the vow? Her exasperation softened a fraction, replaced with perplexity. You humans are so casual about these matters. Breaking the vow is possible, but complicated. My grandmother would be outraged, and House Lescara's rivals would see it as a sign of weakness on our part. Meanwhile, you'd likely be labeled a vow breaker. She paused to let that sink in. Vow breakers sometimes face repercussion. He took a shaky breath. Repercussions. That was the last thing he needed. He was about to offer a clumsy apology when a pair of men wearing the Crimson Talons mark strayed into view down the corridor. Their gazes fell on Tom, narrowed, and they started forward. He knew exactly how precarious his position was. In a desperate hush, he said to Alina, I can't deal with this right now. I'm being followed by some gangsters who want me to cough up a ton of money. Unless your house can magically fix my situation, I don't see a way out. She studied him for half a heartbeat, then spun around to face the Talons. Are those the men? She asked, her voice dropping in pitch. Ah, yes, Tom said, already backing up. And they're not exactly polite. The two approached, arms folded, eyes scanning Alina from head to toe as if sizing up a new threat. One sneered. Hey, Rivers, where's our money? Boss wants it by tomorrow, or we'll start removing your fingers one by one. Alina frowned. This man is under the protection of House Lascara. The gangster snorted. House who? Never heard of it. Her jaw set. You may want to rectify that ignorance. Before either man could respond, she flicked a small sphere from her belt. It expanded midair into a shimmering barrier that pulsed with purple light. In the enclosed space, both gangsters stumbled back as if struck by a sudden gust. Now, she said softly, you will back away, unless you wish to provoke an interstellar diplomatic incident. The men stared at her, uncertain. One glared at Tom. This isn't over, Rivers. You've got 1 day. Then they stomped away, disappearing into the chaos of station foot traffic. Tom felt relief flood his chest, but behind that relief was fresh dread. 1 day. Not enough time to gather so many credits. Alina deactivated the barrier sphere and clipped it back on her belt. I see what you mean about trouble. So you owe them a large sum? You have no idea, he muttered. She gave him a level look. We may be able to negotiate, if you were to remain betrothed to me, at least in name. House Lascara might intercede. But that's a major step, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to commit to that route. Tom rubbed his forehead. This is insane. I never asked for any betrothal. It's your grandmother's scheme. Alina's features tightened with frustration. Trust me, I'm well aware she has a habit of meddling in ways that inconvenience everyone else. Let's find her, shall we? I have a feeling she's not too far. Then we can figure out a solution that doesn't involve you and I being forcibly married. He let out a ragged chuckle, ignoring the swirling pit in his stomach. Sure, why not? Let's go find the grandma with the magic cookies. They made their way deeper into the station's residential wing, which was even more run down than the bar's territory. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the corridors were cramped with second-hand furniture, old vending machines, and piles of crated goods. Alina walked with a determined stride, occasionally glancing at a handheld device that tracked some form of signal Tom couldn't decipher. They passed a cluster of off-duty station workers who gave them strange looks. Likely not used to seeing a dignified alien woman in elegant attire stomping through the dingy halls. Tom's stomach growled again. He pressed a hand to it in embarrassment, but Alina gave him a slight smirk. You must still be hungry. That cookie of my grandmother's won't sustain you for long. It was good, though, Tom admitted. Then he thought of the weird claim about it being a vow cookie. What's in it, exactly? She shrugged. Aryan spices, sweeteners, a psychoactive compound called zentir. It forms a neural link if eaten willingly. Usually two people who intend to be wed each consume half of a cookie in a ceremonial exchange. She eyed him. But apparently grandmother gave you the entire portion. How typical of her. Tom digested that in silence. A psychoactive compound, great. Just what he needed on top of everything else. Maybe that explained the faint throbbing in his head and the odd tingling beneath his skin. Or maybe that was just the stress. After winding through labyrinthine corridors, they reached a small market area. Alina's tracker beeped rapidly and she marched toward a stall at the end, only to find it empty save for a few random crates. No sign of Nana Lascara. In frustration, she kicked one of the crates, releasing a cloud of dust. She was definitely here. Her energy signature is all over this place, but it's faded. She must have left recently. Tom sighed. She's good at vanishing, apparently. Alina's mouth set in a line. She turned to Tom. All right, new plan. My personal ship is docked in Bay 27. We go there, track her from the ship's more sensitive scanners. You can come along or wait, but if you're spotted by your gangster friends, I won't be around to bail you out. It's your call. As if on cue, Tom's beeped. He glanced down, a message from the Crimson Talons. You have 22 hours left, tick-tock. He grimaced. Guess I'm going with you, because if I stay here, they'll corner me eventually. She nodded. They set off for the docking areas, weaving back through the station. They tried to stay inconspicuous, but it was hard to blend in with Alina's regal stride and distinctive coloring. Thankfully, nobody approached them. The hustle of Zeta 9 station was beneficial in at least one respect. Too many people roamed around for any small group to stand out too long. Finally, they arrived at Docking Bay 27, which, unlike the rest of the dingy station, was polished and well-maintained. Alina led him to a sleek, teardrop-shaped starship. Its hull gleamed in a metallic lavender hue, and swirling insignias in rose gold decorated the sides. Even from the outside, Tom felt a peculiar hum emanating from it, as if the ship had a low-level awareness or was grown from living metal. Alina waved her device at the hatch, which promptly slid open. The interior was just as impressive, a softly lit corridor that curved gracefully, leading to a central lounge area with plush seating. Welcome aboard the starlit dawn, Alina said. My grandmother's craft of choice, though it's technically assigned to me. She comes and goes as she pleases. She paused, that exasperated frown returning. Now she's gone without telling me. Typical. Tom's footsteps echoed lightly on the polished floor. This is... wow. I've never stepped onto anything so fancy. Alina pressed a panel on the wall. Displays flickered to life, showing scans of the station, readings of local energy signatures. I'm initiating a deeper sweep for her unique biometrics, she explained. I'll try to cross-reference it with station logs to see if she used any of the official gates. Meanwhile, he tentatively sank into a seat that felt suspiciously like memory foam. The tension in his shoulders eased just a bit. Part of him still couldn't believe the last hour of his life. From a broken auto mixer to a threatened fiancé arrangement, he stared at the lavender walls that glowed softly, as if responding to his presence. It was unlike anything he'd experienced on Zeta 9. Before he could dwell too long, a figure shuffled into the lounge. He recognized her instantly, Nana Lascara. She set a metallic teapot on the table and beamed at him. You're here! Wonderful! She gave no explanation as to how she got on board so quietly. Would you like some Orion tea? She asked casually. Tom blinked. Where did you come from? Alina and I have been searching the station for you. She ignored his question and began pouring a steaming, lavender-colored liquid into 2 cups. Don't let it steep too long or it becomes quite bitter. With that, she called out in a louder voice. Alina, darling, put the scanners away. I'm right here. Alina's outraged voice echoed from down the corridor. In seconds, she marched in, eyes blazing. Grandmother, do you enjoy making me chase you? I enjoy teaching you resourcefulness. The older woman sipped from her cup with a serene smile. Now, dear granddaughter, I assume you've explained the betrothal to Tom? Alina shot an uneasy glance at him. Yes, but he's not thrilled, and neither am I. We both want to know why you did this. Nana Lascara took another sip, then shrugged. I saw someone in need of a cookie, she grinned at Tom. I also saw someone in need of a small nudge. Orion prophecy aside, a bond needs a chance to form. I think this one can help our house in ways we've yet to understand. Prophecy, Tom echoed, feeling more lost by the second. Alina groaned, rubbing her temples. Grandmother is fond of referencing some ancient prophecy that an outsider might revitalize the Orion lines by bridging cultures or some nonsense. I always believed it was a tall tale. Nana wagged a finger. Don't you belittle it. The old text mentioned an unexpected union that would rewrite our destiny. Perhaps it's not so literal, or perhaps it is. Regardless, we have a practical problem. House Lascara is embroiled in enough feuds as it is. We can't have this young man simply walking away from the vow without retribution from other clans. They'd see it as a chance to humiliate us. On the other hand, if he stays engaged, well, that's also complicated. She turned to Tom with conspiratorial warmth. But you do need help, don't you? Tom swallowed. Yes, he admitted. I'm about to lose everything if I don't repay the Crimson Talons. They gave me 24 hours, more like 20 by now. House Lascara has funds, Nana said lightly. We can pay them off, or at least drive them away. That might come with the condition that you honor the engagement for a time. Alina threw up her hands. So we bribe some gangster ring just so the vow stands? Don't you think that's cruel, tying him to me like that? Nana's smile softened. He can always refuse, but the consequences might be dire for him. She poured more tea. I suspect your union will prove quite favorable to both of you if you give it a chance. Tom found his throat dry. This was borderline insane, but he was cornered. What exactly are you expecting me to do? Move in with your family? Where do we go from here? Alina studied him, her posture guarded. If you accept, you'd at least leave Zeta 9 with us. We'd travel to Orion territory. My father and the rest of the house would want to meet you. Make sure you're not some incompetent fraud. A wry smile touched her lips. Though in their eyes, if my grandmother has chosen you, they might be too afraid to question it. Tom pressed his palms together. If it's just a short-term arrangement to satisfy your house and keep me alive, it might be worth it, but I've never even been off the station. I'm no diplomat. We can figure out the details later, Nana interjected. For now, we should depart. The Talons might not wait peacefully. Best to negotiate from a position of strength. Alina breathed in, looking unhappy but resigned. Fine, I'll run the pre-flight checks. She headed to the ship's cockpit, leaving Tom and Nana alone. The older woman regarded him with an encouraging grin. Don't worry, dear. Everything will work out. She patted his hand. Your eyes are already reflecting the Zentir bond. It's faint, but if you concentrate, you might sense Alina's presence or her emotions. It can be very useful. Tom felt a strange flush in his cheeks. I guess we'll see. Nano left to gather supplies. Tom sank further into the plush seat, sipping the odd tea. Its floral aftertaste was surprisingly pleasant, but questions churned through his mind. He couldn't help but think about how Alina's presence affected him. Every time she looked at him, he felt a tingle of awareness. Maybe that was the psychoactive. Maybe it was simple attraction. He wasn't sure. Either way, his entire life was flipping upside down. And for once a part of him wanted to see where it led. He felt the gentle hum of the engines and braced himself as the starlit dawn lifted from the docking bay. A view of the station's exterior spun past on the screens, the battered hull of Zeta 9 flashing by. Tom's heart panged at the sight, an odd mixture of regret and relief. This was his home for so long, but it was also a place of debt and frustration. He could no longer remain there, or else he'd be forced to repay with his life. So maybe this new path was best, right? Within minutes, the ship soared clear of the station's perimeter. Nana wasn't lying about having funds. The authorities at Zeta 9 didn't so much as hail them for clearance. Likely House Lascara had permanent VIP privileges. Tom glimpsed out the viewport. The inky vastness of space spread in all directions, sprinkled with stars and the faint glow of distant nebulas. He took a trembling breath, simultaneously exhilarated and terrified. Suddenly an alarm beeped. The overhead lights flickered. Alina's voice crackled through the intercom. "We're being approached by an unauthorized vessel. Looks like it's coming in hot. Energy readings suggest some heavy weaponry, possibly House Vash. Brace yourselves." Tom scrambled to find a seat, strapping in as the ship lurched. From the cockpit corridor he heard Alina mutter curses in Orion. The view on the screens shifted to show a sleek black cruiser with glowing red weapon ports. It fired a warning shot across the Dawn's bow, making the hull shudder. Nana glided into the lounge, calm as ever. "Time for a demonstration," she said, as if discussing a casual picnic. She tapped the wall, bringing up a panel of unfamiliar symbols, then pressed a sequence. A purple shimmer enveloped the craft, presumably some sort of shield. Another volley of enemy fire struck, but the shield flared bright, dispersing most of the energy. Alina called out from the cockpit again. "We can't outrun them easily. These engines aren't meant for raw speed. We might have to engage in some form of direct countermeasures. Tom, can you get to the engineering bay and see if the shield calibrators are stable? My grandmother can show you the way." Tom didn't need to be asked twice. He followed Nana through a corridor into the engineering section, where panels and alien machinery hummed. She pointed to a console lit up with red text. "Orion script," she explained. "We need to reroute power to the external shields. Have you experience with robotics or hardware?" "Some," he said, recalling his time fiddling with auto mixers and station droids. "But this is way more advanced. You'll figure it out, I trust you." She gave him an encouraging smile and turned to rummage in a toolkit. He tried to read the console, gleaning pattern recognition from the shapes that somewhat resembled universal engineering glyphs. Step by step, he cross-referenced the flow diagrams, pressing keys and adjusting digital dials until the panel's red text shifted to a more reassuring green. A heavy jolt rocked the ship, almost throwing him forward. He gritted his teeth and locked down the power couplings. "Shields rerouted," he shouted. "But if they keep pounding us with that energy cannon, we won't last forever." Nana patted his shoulder. "That's where Alina comes in. She's quite capable in a fight." Sure enough, moments later the Dawn fired a streak of purple-white energy from a concealed turret, striking the black cruiser's weapon array. A small explosion lit up the screen. Then, with a final volley, the cruiser withdrew, presumably deciding the Dawn was too much trouble. The ship rocked again as they spooled up the FTL drive. The swirling starfield outside lurched, then stretched into elongated lines as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. The hume in the air subsided. Tom let out a shaky laugh. "That was intense. Who the hell was that?" Nana's lips pursed. "House Vash, if I'm not mistaken. They are longtime rivals of Lascara. I suspect they learned about you and the cookie. Possibly they want to sabotage the arrangement or capture you for leverage. Typical clan warfare nonsense." Tom's knees felt weak. "They're going to keep coming for me, aren't they?" Nana gave him a sympathetic nod. "Most likely, yes. But you'll be safe with us. Alina is an accomplished pilot and warrior, though she tries to deny that side of herself. She's been trained since childhood." Tom thought of Elena's earlier annoyance and the fact that she still felt forced into this situation. He wondered how she truly felt about all these politics. "I guess I'll stay out of her way," he said softly. Nana didn't reply, but there was a knowing warmth in her gaze that suggested she believed something deeper would form between them. Tom, for his part, was too exhausted to think further. He followed Nana back into the lounge, where Alina soon emerged, the tension in her posture telling of the stress she'd just endured. "We should set down somewhere to repair the damage," Alina announced. "The FTL drive is fine, but the hull took some hits. The nearest friendly port is on Artemis Beta. It's not Orion-controlled, but it's a neutral trade planet. We can get the job done there." Nana offered no objection. Tom, well, he hardly had a say. So they set course. In the hours that followed, he mostly tried to rest, nibbling on ration bars and occasionally sneaking glances at Alina, who worked at the console with a quiet intensity. The lounge lighting dimmed to a soft glow, and the gentle hum of the engines lulled him. However, every so often, a burst of anxiety flared in him, like a wave. It took time, but eventually he realized these surges of emotion might not even be his own. Could it be the bond connecting him to Alina? If so, she was as unsettled as he was. They dropped out of FTED above Artemis Beta, a dusty brown planet dotted with shimmering lakes of unknown composition. The spaceport they contacted looked more robust than Tom expected, with multiple docking rings and bustling traffic. After an exchange of landing codes and an implied bribe, the starlit dawn was cleared to touch down. Once they exited the craft, the spaceport's climate filters blasted them with recycled air that smelled faintly metallic. Outside the main building, vendors in open-air stalls hawked various contraband and mechanical parts. "I'll see about finding the hull plating we need," Elena said, handing a data tablet to Tom. "You can help source the shield capacitors. If you find any trouble, call me." He almost asked what kind of trouble he could possibly find in a place like this, but then recalled the Talons, House Vash, and who knew what else. He decided to keep his head down. "Got it," he said. They parted ways in the crowded bazaar. Tom methodically visited stall after stall, scanning for shield capacitors. Some vendors had no idea what Arion technology specs were. Others offered suspicious knockoffs. He was haggling with a bulky reptilian merchant when a voice hissed behind him. "Well, well, well. Fancy seeing you off station, Rivers." His blood ran cold. Slowly, he turned to see a pair of Crimson Talons enforcers, the same two who had threatened him aboard Zeta 9. The nearest one smirked wide, revealing gold-capped teeth. "Thought you could run away in that fancy ship, huh?" Tom cursed inwardly. He'd been so busy dealing with one crisis that he forgot about the Talons' far reach. "Look," he said, stepping back. "I'm working on a way to pay you. House Lascara might—" "Lascara," the second enforcer sneered. "We know you've entangled yourself with some alien noble. Word travels fast. That might up your value, or it might mean we should ransom you. Bet your new fiancé would pay good credits to keep your head intact." The reptilian merchant glanced warily at them, then shuffled away. Tom glanced around for help. None was forthcoming. "You don't want to do this," he said, striving for calm. "She's got resources that'll crush you if you harm me." The man let out a dark laugh. "Or we could sell you to whoever wants your fiancé humiliated. Heard rumors there's a House Vash that might pay well to see House Lascara lose face. Damn it, they'd tapped into the clan wars just as he feared." "Listen, I can get your money," Tom insisted. "We just have to finalize some deals." They lunged, grabbing him by the arms. He tried to jerk free, but one twisted his wrist, sending a jolt of pain up his arm. They began dragging him away from the bazaar into a narrow alley. Heart hammering, Tom fumbled for his comm device. If only he could send a distress signal to Alina. They shoved him against a wall, pressing a pulsar pistol to his ribs. "Send a message to that fiancé of yours," one demanded. "Tell her to meet us at these coordinates, with every credit she's got." Tom's world spun, fear pounding in his temples. They forced him to open his comm, hands shaking so badly he could barely tap the interface. "Alina," he stammered, They've got me." He read off the coordinates. The Talons smirked. Somewhere deep within, though, a strange warmth surged. It felt like adrenaline, but with an otherworldly spark. He pictured Elena's face, her bright eyes, her unwavering stance. Was that the bond? Could she sense his distress? If so, maybe she'd come. He hoped to every star in the galaxy she would. Minutes passed, excruciatingly slow. The Crimson Talons were apparently too cocky to hide him anywhere else. They just pinned him there in the alley. Tom's mind reeled with scenarios of how he might escape, none feasible. Then he felt a pulse of energy, like a tingling wave. The men must have sensed something too, because they looked around warily. A sudden flicker of movement, a purple blur slammed into the nearest enforcer, sending him crashing to the ground. Alina. Her silhouette was backlit by the alley's overhead lamp, and she was furious. In her left hand she held that same barrier sphere, except this time it crackled with violent arcs of energy. The enforcer holding Tom tried to pivot his gun, but Alina was faster. The sphere unleashed a directed blast of purple force that disarmed him. He howled, clutching his burned hand. Nana Lascara darted forward from behind Alina, brandishing some sort of mechanical staff. She jabbed it into the first man's chest, sending a jolt of electricity surging through him. He toppled, unconscious. The second man tried to scramble away, but with an almost casual flick, Alina's sphere pinned him. He cursed and spat, powerless beneath the energy field. Tom slid down the wall, breath shaky. You found me?" Alina knelt beside him, pressing a quick hand to his chest. "Are you hurt?" "Bruised, but I'll live," he managed, hearing the faint tremor in his own voice. He caught her gaze, noticing the flame in her eyes. "Thanks for saving me," she exhaled, tension coursing out of her. "You're under my house's protection. I take that seriously." There was a flicker in her expression. Concern, maybe relief. Nana gave a pleased smile, but didn't say anything. The pinned enforcer spat in anger. "You can't hold us forever." Nana turned to him. "Oh, we won't need to. We're simply going to arrange a little chat with your boss. Either he releases Tom from all obligations, or House Lascara will lean on him so hard his entire operation crumbles. I suspect he'll see reason." Alina's brow furrowed. "And if that's not enough?" Nana's eyes gleamed. "We'll see." She flipped a communicator from her pocket and began sending messages. Tom realized how out of his depth he truly was. House Lascara might just buy his freedom or threaten enough force to get the talons off his back forever. But then he'd be indebted to them, bound by the cookie vow. Was it a fair trade? In an hour's time, the Crimson Talon's boss had apparently responded that he was open to negotiations. The enforcers were forced to back down under the watchful eye of Elena's barrier sphere. Once the immediate threat was ended, Nana gently guided Tom away. "We'll let the boss and my dear granddaughter handle the details. Meanwhile, let's get you a warm meal. You must keep your strength up, dear fiancé." He couldn't tell if she was joking, but the mention of fiancé made his stomach lurch. Do you truly believe this is right?" he asked, voice hushed. "I never wanted to be roped into marriage." Nana's kind expression turned thoughtful. "I think fate sometimes picks us for something bigger than we imagine. You can resent it, or you can shape it. In your short time with Alina, you've been forced to rely on each other. That's the essence of a bond, is it not?" Tom didn't know how to answer. The swirl of leftover adrenaline made him lightheaded. Was there some real spark with Alina, or was it forced by the cookie's psychoactive? He resolved to keep an open mind, at least. Within the next day, negotiations concluded. House Lascara would pay the Talons a lump sum that cleared Tom's debt. In exchange, Tom agreed to remain with them until the vow matter was settled. It was a devil's bargain, but it kept him alive and free from gangster threats. The men from House Vash lurking around Artemis Beta were another story entirely, but with repairs done, the Starlit Dawn was ready to leave the planet behind. Tom guessed it was best not to linger in a place crawling with potential enemies. A day later they soared into the Orion sector, the ship's hull patched, shield capacitors replaced. The star systems gradually shifted from the chaotic Independence Zone to a region dotted with Orion outposts, each bearing the distinctive swirling emblems. As they approached the capital planet, a message pinged from the Orion High Council. Elena Lascara and her fiancé were expected at an official hearing to validate the betrothal. Evidently, news traveled quickly among the clans, and House Vash had already lodged formal complaints, claiming that House Lascara was illegally forging alliances with humans to gain an unfair advantage. When Tom heard of this, he turned to Elena with a near panic. "A hearing? You mean we have to stand before your entire government? I'll screw it all up. I don't know your customs, they'll hate me." Her eyes softened a touch. "They might. Or they might be intrigued. Grandmother knows how to spin a story, and well, just be honest. If you truly don't want this, we'll see if we can dissolve it peacefully, but House Vash will try to humiliate Lascara, and that might get ugly. Are you prepared to handle that?" He swallowed. After a moment, he forced a small nod. "Yes, let's see it through. I mean, I do owe your family for saving me from the Talons, and maybe—" He trailed off, not sure if he should mention the faint bond he felt whenever he was near her, as if her presence lit up part of his consciousness. Instead, he sighed. "Let's just do it." Their craft landed on Orion Prime with an escort of House Lascara's private security vessels. They touched down on a floating platform suspended amidst towering silver spires that glowed in the planet's golden sunlight. The architecture was breathtaking, a mix of organic curves and high-tech surfaces that pulsed with living energy. Elena explained that the Orion used a special synergy of biotech and crystals to power their structures. Tom barely understood, but it was mesmerizing. They were greeted by a delegation of Orions in formal attire, each with various shades of purple or greenish skin and elaborate designs embroidered on their robes. Nana, wearing an even more ornate gown than before, took the lead, presenting Tom to a stoic official who scanned him with some sort of device, presumably verifying the presence of the Sentir bond. The official nodded, looking vaguely impressed. Then they were led into a grand hall filled with swirling columns of light. At its center, a half-ring of robed council members waited behind a raised dais. House Vash representatives stood to one side, expressions cold. On the other, House Lascara affiliates waited, including Elena's father, a tall man with regal features and a serious mien. When the official session began, a council elder asked Nana Lascara to confirm the betrothal. Nana detailed how she'd selected Tom as a potential fiancé for Elena, referencing ancient rites. The House Vash spokesperson interjected, calling it an abomination and claiming Tom was coerced. Tom mustered all his courage to speak up, explaining how he had indeed eaten the cookie without knowledge, but that he also recognized House Lascara's assistance. He tried to remain polite, though he could sense the tension from House Vash's side like a physical force. One of the council members asked if Tom had manifested any signs of genuine bond synergy. Elena hesitated, then told them about the incident in the alley, the sense of shared resonance, the heightened mental link in times of crisis. The council members exchanged looks. Such synergy was rare, even among full-blood Orions. Perhaps the old grandmother's prophecy talk wasn't so far-fetched. Still, House Vash hammered at the argument. He's just an opportunist. He's using Lascara for money, and she's using him to upset the clan balance. Elena stiffened in indignation, and Tom wrestled with a surge of frustration. Could they not see how reluctant he'd been? Sensing his turmoil, Elena placed a hand on his arm, an uncharacteristic display of solidarity in front of so many onlookers. He felt her presence bloom in his mind. Summoning courage, he addressed the council. "I never wanted to exploit anything. I was desperate, yes, but I also discovered that we share something real. If the council can't accept that, so be it. But it won't change that the bond exists." The chamber fell silent. Even the House Vash representatives seemed momentarily taken aback. Elena's father inclined his head, acknowledging Tom's sincerity. Then, with a hushed command from one of the senior council members, an ornate device was brought forth. A crystalline orb that shimmered with swirling pastel lights. They called it a bond amplifier. Placed between Elena and Tom, it was designed to highlight if a legitimate Sentir connection existed. A swirl of color emerged from the orb, drifting like small galaxies of light. It circled around Tom's hands, then Alina's, forming a faint line of energy that linked them. An audible murmur swept the hall. The orb brightened, indicating a stable synergy. Nana seemed unsurprised, wearing a smug smile. House Vash looked furious, but they could not dispute what the council had seen. After a tense moment, the senior council elder declared, "The betrothal stands." This meant Tom was, at least in Orion eyes, fiancé to Alina. If they both decided to finalize the union or eventually break it, with the council's approval, that would be a separate matter. But for now, the vow was recognized as legitimate. Outside, the golden sun of Orion Prime set behind the shimmering spires. Tom walked with Alina across a wide promenade that overlooked lush, alien gardens glowing faintly in the twilight. "So," he said, voice quiet, "we're engaged, officially." Even though this started as a bizarre accident, Alina let out a half-laugh, half-sigh. "Yes, but we still have decisions. We can remain betrothed for a time, see if the bond continues to deepen, or we can petition to dissolve it eventually, once House Vash's anger cools, and you're free from the Talons for good." He studied her profile in the fading light, noticing the elegant lines of her face. "What do you want?" She hesitated. "I don't like being manipulated, not by my grandmother, not by prophecy. But I can't ignore that we've formed a genuine connection, however unexpected, and you did speak up for me at the council, which I appreciate." A faint smile curved her lips. "So, maybe we see where it leads." Tom felt the warmth from her presence, a subtle hum in his mind. "Okay," he breathed, smiling back. "I'm in no hurry to run away if you're not. Honestly, anywhere with you is better than hiding from the Talons on Zeta 9. She gave a small nod, the corner of her mouth lifting in the beginnings of a reciprocal smile. "Then we'll figure this out together." A flash of movement drew their attention to Nana, who was strolling up behind them. She reached out and patted them each on the arm. "Marvelous. I suspect this is just the beginning of an adventure that will reshape our house, and possibly more." Her eyes twinkled with that familiar mischief. "Shall we go discuss wedding decor, or perhaps start with living arrangements?" Alina groaned. Tom chuckled. Life in the Orion house would certainly not be dull. Later that evening, they found themselves in a quiet wing of the Lascara estate. Tom gazed out at the softly lit cityscape, where strange flying creatures glided among the silver spires. The air here felt fresh compared to Zeta 9's recycled staleness. Alina approached him from behind, and he felt the gentle brush of her presence. He turned, meeting her eyes. She offered him a glass of some glowing Orion beverage. "Peace treaty drink?" she joked. He accepted it gratefully, swirling the luminescent liquid. "I guess so." He studied her a moment. "I'm sorry you got dragged into all of this. I really never meant for any of this to happen." She shrugged. "I blame my grandmother. But maybe in a twisted way she saw something neither of us did. If the bond truly means something, I suppose there are worse fates than being forced to ally with someone who cares enough to stand by me." He felt his chest tighten at her sincerity. "Thanks. That means a lot." They clinked glasses and sipped. Tom tried to ignore the flutter in his stomach. She was beautiful, sure, but there was more. A sense of shared destiny, perhaps, or at least an open door to a new life. She was no longer merely an alien aristocrat he'd stumbled upon. She was someone linked to him by cosmic whim. Down the hallway, Nana chuckled softly to herself, no doubt plotting the next steps. Tomorrow, House Vash might cause more trouble, or the council might issue new demands, but for tonight, the tension had lifted. The vow stood, recognized by Orion law, and Tom Rivers, once a down-on-his-luck barkeep and droid tinkerer, was now, in the strangest twist of all, fiancé to Alina Lascara. He allowed himself to believe, however tentatively, that this might be the break he needed, a chance to become more than a perpetual debtor scraping by in the underbelly of a space station. Maybe, if they were careful, he and Alina could transform this forced arrangement into a true partnership. Because somewhere between the sweet taste of that vow cookie and the rush of alien power surging through the bond, something real had ignited, and as they stood there in the half-light, shoulders almost touching, Tom suspected that if the two of them dared to hold fast to each other, there was no limit to the wonders they might discover. After all, he thought, sipping the glowing drink, an alien grandma's meddling had just saved his life and flung him into a world beyond anything he'd ever imagined. Yes, it was insane, but maybe, in the wide expanse of the galaxy, the best stories always started with something crazy, like a single bite of a cookie that changed everything.